Hello everyone, back in front of the computer with some more questions. One I've got in front of me and had repeatedly in front of me over the last weeks from different people is body position. And body position is not an easy one to answer because body position is connected to change of direction. And change of direction is completely different depending on whether it's under acceleration or under deceleration, braking. So rather than confuse you, I thought I'll best break it down into body position today, and then over the next days we'll add change of direction under acceleration and deceleration. Okay, so let's get the body position right first. And I think the way to do that is let's talk about body position in two halves. Anyone that's worked with me on track or read my book or the MotoGP book or watched the videos would have heard me say before that there's a top half and bottom half of your body, and the bottom half is the important one. It's the foundation you build everything on. You have to get that right first, and the top half is more when you're using all your tyres to help your tyres to get the last part out of you and your bike. And it's also a personal thing, how you use it, how you do it. But the bottom half, majority of fast riders do it all the same. And let's go through how to use it. I think an important rule that I say all the time is left or right, never in the center. And what I mean, this is like the base that we build everything on. What I mean by that is if you sit back in the center between every corner, Almeria, we go there all the time, so I know it well. I've seen a lot of clients do this there. And if you sit back in the center at Almeria between every corner, it's 22 moves a lap, And if you do it the way I'm talking, left or right, never in the center, it's 8 moves a lap. So over 10 laps, that's 140 moves different, And it's not only a lot more physical, makes the bike more unstable, but you're also, every time you move, you're kind of disconnecting from the bike. So difficult to feel rear grip if you're under acceleration, front grip if you're under brakes, So, to convince you more, just picture going into a corner, the difference if you've prepared before and, got off to the side, or whether you're sitting in the middle and need to make a move under brakes with all that G-force on your arms, and you're going down through the gears, you're already going, whoa, because that corner's coming at you, you're going down through the gears, you're trying to get your line right, you're trying to feel the front tyre, and you have to move, which under brakes means you're kind of disconnecting from that support from the tank, and everything, all those G's are going onto your arms as you sit off to the side, And obviously, it's, like I said, you're disconnecting. It's difficult to feel the grip of the front tyre when you're right on the edge there. And stability. I really recommend not to do this, So I hope I've convinced you. Left or right, never in the centre. And now, let's talk about moving your lower body from one side of the bike to the other, and when and how. So imagine you're on the left of the bike. We're going to go from a left turn to a right. At your kitchen table, practice this and you'll get the feel of it. So the upper body is out and we're committed to the turn. We're turning. So as the bike comes up, there's a window just before, straight up and down to just after. You want your head in the center there while you're changing your butt across. Don't change your head from out one side and your butt both at the same time to the other side. You get a lot more instability. You want head in the center before you move your butt across. So as the head comes back towards the center and the bike upright, practice here with your air handlebars at the kitchen table here. So you want minimum pulling on the bars as well for instability, especially if you're under acceleration. So practice this. Head to the centre, just before the centre, rock forward onto your feet and lift your bum across to the other side without dragging it on the seat. For some reason, it's like someone's going like that on the back of the bike if you drag. So again, committed to the turn. As your head comes back to the centre just before, rock forward and low. That helps the wheelie if you're under acceleration. Forward and low, and then move your butt across, okay? So it's just rocking forward and low. And we're practicing now as though we've got no G-force, from acceleration, deceleration. And so that's constant throttle. And in the next videos, we're going to add braking and acceleration and change of direction. And I look forward to go through that with you. The next question I've got here in front of me is about gearing. It's come up a few times. A lot of track days have asked me as well about it and when and what are the advantages. I'd like to start off by saying that the faster a person rides on track, the lower the gears they use. And I know that goes against what a lot of people would think, but I learned this by working with different level clients and found what I would recommend them depended on their speed, So the reason for this is if you're riding slower on track, you need less response from your bike. Actually, a lower gear and a lot more response upsets the slower riders because the throttle is so touchy. They don't need the explosive acceleration from the corner from a lower gear, and they don't need the extra deceleration, engine brake. So, for example, I would recommend them a third gear. I'm riding around with them and third feels right, because basically when you open the throttle and the bike runs wider, with a taller gear, when you close the throttle, you haven't got the engine brake to pull it back in. And they don't need it because they're not going as fast. As you go faster, you want more response. When you're going around the corner, it's more jerky, but you can make the bike go wider by opening, and when you close it, that extra engine brake, high RPM, pulls it back in. So you've got more control of the bike. It decelerates better, so it brakes better, with your braking, but also it punches off the corner better because of the high RPM. So in general, lower gear for the faster people, opposite is what you think. So then about gearing, I have ridden on track teaching, with my own bike for 12 years now, and I had never changed the gearing. I did it once on one of my rental bikes and tried it because I had a regular client, Cenk from Istanbul, and he wanted to try it, and he requested it for me. So I got a smaller front sprocket to let him try at Almeria, we were. And I tried the bike. All it did was ruin first. I could no longer use first gear in the tightest corner, into the back straight. And the first, second, and then to a lesser extent third are the important gears, because they're the ones you use in the corners. And the gears after that are just straight. As long as they don't limit, I don't care, if I'm feeling mean, I'll rev it out in fifth, if I'm feeling nice and don't want to, don't have to do a lap time, whatever, I'll hook sixth, So it's the low gears that matter to me. And on a street box, the general change when you get a street bike and you get a race gearbox for it, the general change is first gear only is taller. And what that does, say you've got all your gears here first, if you make it taller, you get closer, and then you lower the overall gearing, the whole gearbox is closer ratio, closer together gearbox. But and on the standard road bikes with that lower first gear, that's better for taking off at the lights and parking and whatever. That lower first gear, when you lower the gearing, becomes unusable. So basically you're using from second to fifth, which is fine. You can do that, But to me, then all you do is lower the whole gearing, make first unusable, second is often too long for that tight corner now for me, And then, so my lowest gear is not as good as it was. And then, if you you've pulled the gear ratio down. What I often see is people in their, say they're in the they're usually not in the fastest group, not the fastest guys, and they're coming in and they're going, "Oh, sorry, we've just come from Cartagena, or Valencia, which is tighter. Now we're at Almeria. I was on the limiter. I had to roll off every lap. Then they dive into their box of sprockets, get their hands filthy, skin their knuckles, putting on different sprockets, and all stressed, sweaty, ready for the next session. And I'm like, the difference that gearing will make by changing it is so small compared to everything else. To me, it's the last thing I would do first is tyres, right? Then I would work with bike balance, as in to make sure that thing turns right, as in geometry, right heights. Then because of those tyres and you're going a bit faster, you're going to start squashing that suspension a bit more. You're going to need some springs, and make it harder. Maybe some more damping, better shock, better fork and turners, whatever. Then, the brakes during this time, you need better brakes. Get rid of the ABS or lines or brake pads, or because of the tyres and you're leaning over more, you're going to need foot pegs or get your feet off the ground so you can lean over and make the bike turn more. And after all this, and you're really getting everything out of you, which is let's face it, you can change gear, as long as it's not limiting and those lower gears are good in the corners, that's what counts. The last little piece that the really good race teams play with is the gearbox, because your gear ratio will be different as you go faster. So why not get there before you muck around with gearing? I know this is not going to make everyone happy about, gearing, but there's a lot more, I believe, to come from yourself and everything else before you play with gearing.